You stir gently, not from a dream, but from the deep, cold quiet of your cell. It's not a prison, though it may feel like one, but your tiny monk's chamber tucked into the stone walls of a medieval abbey. The stone beneath you is cold, even through the scratchy wool of your blanket. And the silence around you is thick, almost sticky. But not for long. A low bell echoes through the stone corridors, calling you from your sleep. You open your eyes, not because you want to. No, one never wants to at this hour, but because you must. The hour is somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning. You can't be certain. Time is no longer your own here. You sit up slowly. The straw mattress crackles beneath you, prickly and lumpy. You slept in your robe again, because it's too cold not to, and your hair is damp at the temples from where your cowl clung to your scalp in the night. You try to wiggle your toes, but they feel numb. Your breath is a faint white mist in the moonlit dark. There are no clocks here, only bells, and the bell just now, that's the Vigils bell. The first of the 8 daily prayers. You are a monk now, whether by choice or pressure. Maybe your family couldn't afford to feed all their children, or maybe you had a strange religious calling when you were 12. But now, here you are, barefoot on a stone floor in the middle of the night, wrapping yourself in a cloak that smells like damp wool and stale incense. You step out into the corridor. It's narrow, only just wide enough for a robed figure to pass. The torches on the walls flicker with weak orange light. The air smells of smoke, tallow, and old books. It's not unpleasant, but it's not cozy either. You make your way silently, always silently, through the hall towards the chapel. Other monks shuffle ahead of you, their movements hushed, their faces half hidden under hoods. No one speaks, no one dares. Your footsteps echo lightly, a soft slapping against the flagstone floor. Someone coughs. Another monk sneezes into his sleeve. That's about as loud as life gets at this hour. You enter the chapel. It's vast, high-ceilinged, and impossibly cold. The kind of cold that nestles deep in your bones and decides to stay. Candles flicker along the altar. Shadows sway across the ancient stones. You take your place in the choir stall, wooden and narrow, polished smooth by hundreds of years of identical routines, and now you begin to chant. The Latin is old, melodic and hypnotic. You're not really thinking about what it means anymore. Your mouth knows the shapes. Your lungs follow the rhythm. It's not beautiful exactly, but it is constant, predictable. You chant about psalms and sin and eternity and the voice of God in the desert. You try not to think about how long it will last. An hour? Maybe 2? Your eyes flutter. You sway, not intentionally, but because sleep is still wrapped around your spine like a wool blanket. You remind yourself to stay upright. That snoring is a punishable offense. Eventually, the prayers end. The bell rings again. You rise, bow slightly, and begin your shuffle back through the halls. You're not allowed to return to bed, not exactly. Instead, you sit in your cell. You might read scripture. You might copy a manuscript, though the candlelight is dim. You might just sit and think, or try not to. The silence is dense again. You wonder, why do they wake you at 2 a.m.? What's the spiritual point? Does God even listen when everyone's this tired? But you don't ask, not allowed. You're a monk now. You do as you're told, and silently, outside your tiny window, the sky is still black. You wrap the wool blanket tighter around your shoulders, your fingers stiff with cold. You rock gently in place, not because it's required, but because it helps keep you from falling asleep and getting caught. You think of home, a warm hearth, bread with butter, the sound of someone humming while they chop onions. You push the thought away. Attachment is sin. Instead, you look at your hands, dry, cracked, stained faintly with ink. Today, or what will become today, you have been assigned to the scriptorium, hours and hours of copying texts by hand. But before that, there's Lord's, the dawn prayer. You think it starts just before sunrise. There's always another bell. Let's pause here. Your legs are still cold, but your thoughts are quieter. Now, let the stone walls of the Abbey close in gently around you. The candle burns low beside you. The air is still, your breath steady. In the next part, we'll step into the grey light of morning. There will be porridge, perhaps a chore in the garden, and more bells, of course. But for now, rest your eyes. You have just a few moments before the day truly begins. The grey light of dawn creeps across the stone floor of your cell like a cautious cat. It doesn't come all at once. Rather, it unfolds gently, bleeding in around the corners of the wooden shutters. You don't open them, not because you can't, but because what lies beyond is mostly the same every day. Grass, fog, a few sluggish sheep if you're lucky. The bell rings again. This one is softer, almost forgiving. Lord's, the dawn prayer. It's meant to offer praise as the day breaks. Your knees creak as you rise. It's the second time you've done this already, and the sun hasn't fully risen. There's no speaking as you move through the corridor, just the soft patter of bare or sandaled feet on ancient stone, a faint cough, a murmur of breath. One of the older monks is limping slightly. You don't know his name, and you've never spoken to him, but he's always there, always limping. You wonder if it's from an injury, or maybe it's just life wearing him down, one slow winter at a time. Back in the chapel, your breath fogs slightly as you kneel. You can feel the cold of the flagstone radiate up through the fabric of your robe. The chanting begins again, still in Latin, still measured, slow and deliberate. If you listen closely, you can hear the slight differences in voice, the quiver of the eldest monks, the breathy youth of the novices, yours somewhere in between, unremarkable, steady, and slightly nasal from the chill. When Lord's ends, you finally hear it, the soft, merciful rattle of bowls in the refectory. Breakfast, you don't expect much. You learned that lesson quickly. You file into the refectory, a long stone hall with wooden benches running down its centre. No chairs, no cushions, just benches, worn shiny by generations of behinds, shaped just like yours. A monk stands near the head of the hall, reading scripture aloud in a slow, unwavering tone. You are to eat in silence. The only voice permitted is the one delivering the word of God. You sit, and a bowl is placed in front of you. It's a sort of porridge, though calling it that may be generous. It's more of a thick grey sludge, made from barley or maybe oats, boiled too long and too plain to taste like anything. Still warm, though. That's something. You lift the spoon, a worn wooden thing, slightly splintered at the edges, and take a bite. It's chewy and bland, but filling enough. You steal a glance at your fellow monks. They eat without looking up. It's not rudeness, it's focus. You wonder what's in their minds as they chew. Are they meditating? Are they remembering a sin? Are they thinking of their mother's stew, the one with bits of lamb and garlic, that they haven't tasted since they were 13? Probably not. You're not supposed to think about stew here. Once the last spoon scrapes the bottom of the last bowl, the bell rings again. Prime. The next prayer. They come like tide markers, guiding your day, dividing your thoughts, reminding you that your time is not your own. You begin to realize nothing here is yours. Not your schedule, not your clothes, not even your name, if you took a new one upon entry. Some monks chose something meaningful, like Benedict or Anselm. You, on the other hand, were told what yours would be. Brother Elric, you don't love it, but you answer to it now. After Prime, the day begins in earnest. You're assigned to the scriptorium today. A long, narrow chamber lined with desks and shelves, smelling of ink, parchment, and beeswax. It's one of the quieter places in the Abbey, which is saying something. The scratching of quills is the loudest thing you'll hear all morning. You sit at a desk, a scroll unrolled before you. Its vellum smooth and yellowish under your fingers. You dip your quill into the ink, slowly, carefully, and begin copying. The Latin characters flow one by one. It's not creative work. It's repetition. But it's divine repetition, or so they say. Each letter a small prayer. A devotion of patience. Your fingers cramp after 20 minutes. Your back stiffens. You shift a little. Someone across the room clears his throat. Another monk sneezes into the crook of his robe. You resist the urge to yawn. You're halfway through a paragraph when your mind wanders. What would happen if you spelled a word wrong? Would anyone notice? Would God? You shake the thought off and get back to copying. Slowly, carefully, prayerfully. Time blurs. Eventually, the bell rings again. Terse, mid-morning prayer. Back to the chapel. Your knees are sorer this time. The cold more present. The chant slower. Or perhaps your ears have begun to stretch time like taffy. You return to your desk afterward. The same scroll, the same ink, the same hand. It's not exciting, but it's simple, predictable. The kind of quiet routine that dulls your thoughts into something soft and sleepy. The sun outside finally begins to warm the walls, slightly. A few rays drift through the narrow window slits and fall across your desk. Dust particles dance in the light, slowly spinning, floating, like they're praying too. You lean back for just a moment, just to stretch your neck, just to let your eyes close for a second. Your quill falls from your hand and lands with a faint clatter. You jump slightly, heart racing. No one says anything, but a pair of eyes from the corner of the room lingers on you a moment too long. You clear your throat and pick the quill back up, trying not to look embarrassed. You are not a good monk yet, but you are trying. Now, the sun is almost at its peak. The next bell will be sexed, midday prayer. But for now, let your eyes rest. You've copied over 700 words of scripture today, and your wrist feels like old wood. Breathe in, smell the faint mix of ink, vellum, and the spicy tang of candle wax. You are safe here, tired but safe. Let that tiredness wash over you gently. The next part will bring afternoon labour and a quiet meal beneath high arches. But you're in no rush. Close your eyes, Brother Elric. You've earned a soft pause. The next bell tolls, deeper now in the day. The sun, though pale and often hiding behind a wash of grey clouds, has reached its highest point. You feel its warmth just slightly, a small mercy through the thick Abbey walls. It is time for sext, the midday prayer. Again you rise. Your back cracks faintly as you do. You've been hunched over the desk for hours. You try to stretch discreetly. A twist of the spine, a roll of the shoulders. But you're painfully aware of how audible your joints are. The monk beside you winces sympathetically. Or maybe it's judgment. It's hard to tell with him. You make your way to the chapel. Again, the chanting begins. Again. But now there's something different. Not in the words, but in you. You're starting to settle into the rhythm. It's not pleasant exactly, but it's grounding. Like waves breaking quietly on a shore. Each chant like a tide. Each prayer like a breath. You're beginning to understand how a person could live this way. Not thrive necessarily, but endure. After sext, you finally get to eat again. Back in the refectory, another bowl waits for you. This one contains stew, or something stew-like. There are beans in it, and maybe a bit of onion. It smells earthy and faintly metallic, but warm. You chew slowly, letting the warmth spread through your chest. It's the highlight of your day, and you know it. No one speaks. The scripture reader drones on about obedience. You find your mind wandering again. Not rebelliously, just sleepily. You wonder if monks ever fall asleep mid-bite. You're certain someone has. After the meal, there is a brief pause. Not rest exactly. Monks do not nap. But a moment of internal stillness. You return to your cell and sit on the edge of your straw mattress. The window is just high enough to show a sliver of sky. You hear birds. You're not sure what kind, but they sound small and sharp. Sparrows, maybe. Or larks. Then comes the bell. Again, of course, this one is for labour. The part of your day when you work outside the script. Today, you've been assigned to the gardens. You are quietly relieved. The garden is not far from the cloister. A walled area with gravel, paths and raised beds of herbs and vegetables. The air is damp and rich with the scent of earth. You inhale, and for a moment you forget you're wearing the same robe you slept, prayed, and ate in. You kneel beside a row of leeks. The soil is thick and dark, and it clings to your fingers as you begin pulling weeds. They resist you at first, as stubborn as monks in debate. But eventually they yield, one by one. There's peace here, real peace. Bees buzz lazily past your ear. A worm curls up beside a small stone, hiding from the light. You find yourself humming under your breath. Just a note, nothing sinful. And quickly stop. But no one heard you. You glance over and see Brother Matthias watering the medicinal herbs. He has a soft face and large, careful hands. You've never spoken to him beyond a nod, but you like how gently he handles the mint. Another monk nearby is tending to the compost heap. You envy him strangely. There's something pure about working with waste, turning rot into something useful. Holy even, you pull another handful of weeds. A beetle crawls across your knuckles. You let it pass. Time moves differently in the garden, slower but lighter. You begin to forget your sore knees, your cold toes, even your headache, dulled by the breeze and the rhythmic scrape of your hands in the soil. Eventually, the bell calls again. None. Mid-afternoon prayer. Back to the chapel. You wipe your hands on your robe. It leaves a dark streak across the wool, but you've stopped caring about stains. The robe belongs to the Abbey. So do the stains. None is brief, relatively. The chant feels softer now, more subdued. The monks around you are slowing, not from laziness but from weariness. It's been a long day, and it's not over. After none, there's a task you've been dreading. Stonework. The Abbey is repairing part of the cloister wall. A minor collapse caused by frost or time or both. You're not strong, and your fingers aren't calloused. But you do what you're told. You lift. You stack. You fetch buckets of lime mortar from the cart and spread it with a flat wooden paddle. It smells sharp, chalky. The grit gets into your nose, your sleeves, your teeth. You try not to cough. The master mason is not a monk. He's a lay brother, allowed inside the grounds, but not part of the order. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, he says things like, "You're holding that trowel like it's a dead fish, brother." You want to smile, but you're not sure if monks are allowed to find things funny. You finish your part of the wall, mostly filling gaps, wiping stray mortar, and straighten up. Your back complains loudly. You don't mind. You find your fingers aching again. You've not yet gone a day without them hurting. Now the sun has begun to lower, casting long golden light through the cloister walk. You sit for a moment in the warmest patch you can find, your robe smelling of soil and stone dust. There's a silence here, not just the absence of noise, but the presence of stillness. The kind of silence that feels like a blanket or a distant hymn. Let yourself rest. Here, let the sunlight wrap around your shoulders like an old friend. The next bell will bring vespers, evening prayer, and soon after, the final meal. A few final hours of light, but for now, close your eyes, if only briefly. You've bent over fields, over parchment, over stone. Your hands have worked, your mind has chanted, your body has bowed, you are tired. And that's holy in its way. Let the Abbey walls breathe around you. Let the wind carry the scent of rosemary and old bricks. Let the silence sing. You hear the bell before you see the light change. But it's coming, slowly, stretching long shadows across the cloister walk. The sun, worn thin by its journey, spills gold across the stone floor. You rise from your resting place with a quiet groan and brush the dust from your robe, though much of it stays. The robe is never really clean. Nothing is, not in a monastery where water is precious, soap is a luxury, and laundry is reserved for the truly sinful. The bell rings again, longer this time. vespers, the evening prayer. You shuffle with the others into the chapel, now glowing orange in the lowering light. The candles have already been lit. Their flames flicker gently, swaying with the breeze sneaking through cracks in the stained glass. The air smells of beeswax and cold stone, and something else, something faint and familiar. Bread. Dinner must be coming, but first the prayer. You kneel again. You're getting better at it. Your knees don't complain quite as much, and your row bunches in just the right way now to cushion the hard floor. Maybe that's the secret of monkhood. Not strength or silence, but the slow surrender to a daily choreography. One movement after another. Like steps in a quiet, sacred dance, the chanting begins, the voices rise and fall like a tide, echoing softly through the stone chamber. The words aren't yours, not in your native tongue, not born of your own heart, but still you find comfort in them. They're ancient, carried by monks who knelt in this same spot hundreds of years before you. Somewhere along the left aisle, a younger monk's voice cracks on a note. No one reacts, no one mocks. But you smile faintly to yourself. Even here, where everything is, solemn small imperfections still bloom. When the final line is sung and the candles snuffed one by one, the bell rings again. You walk slowly to the refectory. Evening light pools along the floor like melted butter, softening everything it touches. The air smells of warm bread and cooked lentils. Your stomach growls, loudly this time. No one looks at you, but you imagine they heard. You're past caring. You sit at the long bench, and again a bowl is placed in front of you. This time it's a thicker stew, darker than the one before, and richer. Maybe they added a bone today, or found a sprig of thyme. There's a chunk of coarse brown bread beside it, dense and chewy, the crust hard enough to make your teeth hesitate, but it's warm, truly warm. It is the best thing you've tasted in weeks. You eat slowly, savouring every bite. You chew the crust until it softens, and sip the broth like it's wine. It's not. Monks rarely drink wine unless it's watered down and ceremonial. But your imagination is generous when you're this hungry. The scripture reader speaks of endurance, of patience, of humility. You stop listening halfway through and watch the steam rise from your bowl instead. It curls and dances in the low candlelight like incense, and you imagine it carrying your weariness upward to the rafters. After the meal, you help wash the bowls. There's no soap, just warm water in a large copper basin. You scrub with a stiff bristled brush that smells faintly of lye. The stone underfoot is damp, and your sleeves get soaked up to your elbows. You don't mind. The water feels good on your skin. A small blessing, quiet and unexpected. Then comes Compline, the final prayer of the day. You walk slowly now, your belly full, your limbs heavy. Your shoulders sag, not in defeat, but in surrender, like a ship easing into harbour after a long sail. The chapel is dark now, lit only by a few small lamps. The candles are fewer. The monks are fewer too. Some are already in their cells, too old or too weary for the final prayer. You kneel one last time. The chant is softer now, slower. There's a finality to it, like a lullaby hummed by old stone. You feel your eyes grow heavy as the Latin syllables melt together in a stream of sound and silence. You don't try to stay sharp. You let yourself fade a little, not to sleep, but to stillness. You bow your head, the prayer ends, the final bell tolls, and you rise, slowly, gently, and make your way back through the corridors to your cell. Your door creaks faintly as it opens. The walls are just as narrow as they were this morning. Your straw bedding is still flat. The candle stub by your wooden stool has melted almost completely. A small wax puddle hardens against the stone. You sit, you breathe, you think about the day. Not with judgment, just as an observer. A curious spirit in a tired body. You remember the bird calls from the garden, the scrape of your quill on vellum, the taste of warm bread, the smell of lime dust on your sleeves, and you remember, tomorrow you will do all of this again. Now, Brother Elric, rest. You have chanted, worked, lifted, bowed, and breathed in sacred rhythm. The Abbey breathes with you, quiet, constant, like a mountain in fog. Let the stone cradle you. Let the night hold you. You may dream of green fields, of quiet gardens, of bees in lavender. You are allowed. Tomorrow begins with the same bell. But for now, sleep. You wake again in the dark, but this time it feels softer. The bell tolls, low and slow, like a voice half asleep. It doesn't startle you anymore. It simply arrives like breath, like fog slipping through a window crack. You open your eyes. You are already sitting up before your thoughts catch up. The cell is cold. Of course it is. The stone walls keep nothing out. Not the wind, not the damp, not the faint smell of mildew that gathers in the corners. But you've grown used to it. Mostly. Your hands, stiff from yesterday's work, fumble with the edges of your robe as you rise. You feel the ache in your knees as you stand. A familiar, dull ache. Like your body is trying to hum in harmony with the stone itself. You step out into the corridor. The Abbey is still. More still than usual. It's Vigils again. But something's different tonight. The air feels heavier. Or maybe that's just your breath, dragging behind you like a length of wool. As you move toward the chapel, your bare feet whisper against the flagstone. The monks around you are quiet as ghosts. You notice one of them limping more than usual. Another has fallen behind slightly. No one says anything. No one offers help. That too is part of the rule. Silent endurance. In the chapel, the candles flicker lower than usual. One even gutters out entirely just before the chant begins. No one moves to replace it. The voices begin, but they're softer tonight. Or maybe just more tired. Yours included. Your voice cracks once in the middle of a verse. It surprises you, and for a split second, you forget the Latin. You stop, recover, rejoin the chant. No one turns to look. Still, the embarrassment prickles faintly beneath your robe. When the prayer ends, you return to your cell, but instead of resting, you're summoned. A novice appears at your door. He doesn't speak, of course, but he gestures, and you follow. You're led to a smaller chamber, tucked near the edge of the Abbey walls. Inside sits Brother Corwin, the prior, second only to the abbot himself. His robe is darker than yours, and older. He doesn't look up as you enter. He gestures to a bench. You sit, still no words. He studies you for a long moment. You wonder what he sees. Finally, he slides a small book across the table. Illuminated, gold leaf edging, its cover is smooth and warm, like it's been held by many hands over many winters. You glance at it, then back at him. He nods once, very slightly, and you understand. He's asking if you're ready. Ready for what? To take on more responsibility? To become a full scribe? Or perhaps to translate rather than simply copy? You nod, equally faintly. He stands. That's all. The meeting is over. You rise and return to your cell, carrying the book with both hands. It smells of dust and saffron, like it's soaked up centuries. You set it down on your stool and stare at it. You feel heavier, but not burdened, weighted, grounded. Later, as the sun begins to rise, you return to the chapel for Lauds. The light filtering through the stained glass is paler today, milk white and soft pinks. The candles are replaced, the silence deeper. After the prayer, you walk to the scriptorium, but today you don't return to your usual desk. Instead, you're directed to a new one, slightly larger, with better light, a cushion on the bench, and your new book, waiting for you. You run your fingers along the first page. The letters are older than your grandparents'. The ink faded but elegant. You've been assigned to preserve this text, to trace over its fading lines, to give it a second life. As your quill scratches the parchment, you feel a strange peace. Not excitement, not pride, just peace. There is something comforting in knowing you'll be spending the next week or month with this one book, line by line, word by word. You make a mistake, you panic for a moment, but it's a small one. A shaky R, easily corrected with a careful flourish. Still, it reminds you. You're human, you don't pray aloud. But in your head you whisper, "Let this be enough." The bell rings for terse. You stretch your fingers, now ink-stained and trembling slightly. You leave the scriptorium, but you don't go straight to the chapel. You walk instead into the herbarium. It's an enclosed courtyard garden, tucked between the library and the cloister wall. You weren't told to come here, but you needed air. No one stops you. The scent here is thick, rosemary, sage, crushed thyme beneath your sandals. You pause beside a row of lavender. The colour is fading with the season, but the smell is still full and round. You kneel, not to pray, just to breathe. You brush your fingers across the leaves, and the oils stick to your skin. Somewhere nearby, bees hum lazily. You sit on a small stone bench and close your eyes. Time becomes something else. Something that isn't measured in bells or verses, but in wind and warmth and the way lavender lingers on your fingertips. Eventually, the next bell calls you back, to the chapel, to prayer, to the day. But something in you has changed. You are beginning to find the stillness between the chants, the rest between the labours. The spaces where sleep isn't just for the body, but for the soul. You bow your head and let the silence fold around. You again, now rest. Let your own breath be the only sound in the room. You've earned a quiet pause. Let the lavender follow you into your dreams. Let the soft toll of the bell echo far, far behind your closed eyes. Tomorrow will come again, but for now, sleep. The day unfolds again, just as it always does, with bells and breath, parchment and prayer. But you begin to notice the spaces in between. After the midday meal, another bowl of lentils, a stale crust of bread soaked in broth, you are not sent to the garden, nor the scriptorium, nor the cloister wall. Instead, Brother Matthias finds you, the gentle one with the soft hands and the herbal scent that never quite fades. He doesn't speak. Words are for prayer, not errands. But he gives you a look, one of those monkish, silent looks that says, "Follow me," and so you do, through the narrow halls of the Abbey, past the chapel, past the chapter house, into a part of the building you've not walked through before. The walls here are darker, older, the windows smaller. There's a dampness in the air that smells of deep stone and something sharper. Vinegar? Wine? No. Something medicinal. Matthias unlocks a heavy wooden door and pushes it open. You expect dust, decay, but instead the room is warm, not cosy. This is still a monastery after all, but warmer than the others. The walls are lined with jars, dozens, no, hundreds, each filled with strange preserved things, twisted roots, pale leaves, tiny bones, dried flowers folded like paper boats. This is the infirmary storeroom. Matthias lights a lamp with practised ease and hands you a small leather satchel. You open it. Inside are bundles of linen, a mortar and pestle, a flask of rainwater, and 2 sprigs of horehound, bitter, grey-green, and smelling like a mix of mint and dirt. Matthias says only one word, a rare thing. Watch. And you do. He grinds, measures, mixes. The herbs turn dark in the bowl, their scent rising like ghosts. He adds water slowly until it becomes a thin paste. Then he reaches for a bottle, unlabelled, and adds 3 drops. The liquid hisses faintly on contact. He hands you the pestle. Your hands shake. You begin to stir. This is the tonic for fever, not for the monks. They rarely admit weakness, but for the villagers who knock quietly at the Abbey gates, desperate for help. As you mix, Matthias watches, not sternly, just carefully, like someone watching a candle being lit for the first time. Eventually, he nods. You've done well enough. Later, the bell rings. None. Back to the chapel. The chant feels slower now, heavier. You've been carrying the scent of crushed herbs in your sleeves, and it lingers, mixing oddly with the beeswax and incense. When prayer ends, you walk past the refectory and find yourself led elsewhere. Again, by silent gesture. This time, by Brother Cedric. Cedric is older, wrinkled eyebrows, like brambles. He rarely blinks, and his voice, when he does speak, is dry as paper. He takes you to a chamber tucked behind the Abbey library, a space so small the door barely clears your shoulder. Inside, a table, a chair, a candle. On the table, a loaf of bread. A test. You know this somehow. Cedric gestures to the chair. You sit. Then he places a dagger on the table beside the bread. He says nothing. Your mind races. Is this a parable? A ritual? A trick? You stare at the bread. You stare at the dagger. Cedric watches, still as a statue. And then you do nothing. You do not eat. You do not speak. You sit and wait. Eventually, after minutes or hours, it's hard to tell. Cedric nods once, takes the dagger, breaks the bread, and hands you a piece. You chew. It's dry, but sweetened. Raisins. Honey, the first sweetness you've tasted in weeks. Cedric smiles, barely, and leaves. No explanation, just another monkish mystery. As the sun sinks low again, you return to your cell. Your satchel now holds a tiny bundle of herbs. A gift from Matthias, perhaps. Or a quiet assignment. There's a faint note tucked into the fabric. No words, just a drawing. A leaf, bell-shaped. You press the herb between 2 pages of your psalter. Let it dry. Let it live. There, evening falls. You attend vespers. Then dinner. Then Compline. The same patterns, now worn like a groove into your mind, comforting in their repetition. But tonight, something is different. You lie in bed and feel it. A shift, not in the Abbey. In you, you are no longer just surviving, are sinking into this world. You are part of its silence now, its rituals, its quiet riddles. Sleep, Brother Elric. You've made tonics for the sick. You've passed strange, wordless tests. You've learned more today than you realize. Let your fingers rest from grinding. Let your thoughts settle like herbs in water. Let the Abbey breathe through you, slow and steady. Tomorrow may bring wind, or cold, or scripture. But tonight brings only stillness and sleep. The air is different today. You feel it before you rise, even before the first bell tolls. A stillness in the walls, not like silence, but like something holding its breath. You dress more slowly than usual. The wool robe scratches at your arms, but your skin no longer flinches. You no longer notice the straw on the floor poking through the soles of your sandals. Your hands find the folds of the garment by memory, as if you've worn it for a lifetime. The Vigils bell calls you again, and you step into the corridor. But now you see them differently, the monks around you. You've begun to learn their shapes, their rhythms. Brother Cedric always walks too fast, even for prayer. Brother Matthias touches the sleeve of his robe 3 times before kneeling. The young novice, you still don't know his name, walks like he's trying not to disturb the air. In the chapel, the candles flicker, the chanting begins. Yours too. It's easier now, not just the pronunciation, but the meaning. Or perhaps the meaning doesn't matter anymore. Only the sound and the silence between the sounds. After prayer, you return not to your cell, not to the refectory, not to your assigned labor. Today is different. It is confession day, not public, not dramatic, just quiet, private and mandatory. Each monk, one by one, sits with the abbot behind the small wooden screen near the east wall of the chapel. You dread it, not because of what you've done. Your sins are simple, a moment of envy, a slip in focus during prayer, a wish for buttered bread. But it's the stillness of it that frightens you, the exposure, the waiting, until it's your turn. You kneel. The screen separates you, but the shape of the abbot's robe is clear behind the lattice. His breath is steady. He says nothing. He waits. You begin. Your voice is hoarse. You've barely spoken in a week. You confess that you thought Brother Matthias looked tired and wished to offer him rest. A kindness, yes, but also pride. You confess that you longed one evening to run your fingers through the grass outside the Abbey and feel it with bare feet. A childishness, a distraction. You confess that once you corrected a copied word without asking. You knew it was right, but you didn't seek permission. Pride again. Autonomy. You confess that you think sometimes, just sometimes, you miss being yourself. Silence. Then the abbot speaks, only one word. Continue. And the silence wraps around you again. You rise, lighter and heavier all at once, outside. The sun peeks through the clouds. It isn't much, just a pale gold whisper across the cloister grass. But it feels like forgiveness. You return to the scriptorium. The book is waiting, the one you were assigned to preserve. You turn the next page. A single line stands there, fading but still legible. You trace over it carefully, one stroke at a time, the ink seeping into the parchment like breath into lungs. Each letter feels sacred now, not because of what it says, but because of what it survives. That afternoon, you're sent to the gatehouse. Not a usual task for someone so new. Brother Cedric meets you there. He holds a small ledger. You are to write names. Those who come, those who go. Most will bring wool or turnips or prayer requests from the village, but today no one comes. You sit in the little wooden room beside the iron gate. You smell oil, damp wood and cold metal. You hear wind scraping across stone. You write nothing, and yet somehow the silence feels full. You carve a tiny star into the margin of the ledger. You immediately regret it, and then, strangely, you smile. That night, after Compline, after the final chant has echoed into the rafters and the chapel lies dim and still, you don't return to your cell. You take a different path. You pass through the garden, now dark, the herbs folded into themselves like sleeping animals. You walk into the cloister walk, and then quietly out through the open arch into the open air. It's allowed, technically. You're not leaving, just breathing. This night sky stretches above you, wider than you remember, thousands of stars, cold and indifferent, or maybe curious. You lie down on the cloister grass. The stone walls around you are tall, but they cannot hide the stars. You think of everything you've learned, not from books, from silence, from failure, from that one sweet raisin bread. You think of how hard the earth is beneath you. You think of how rare it is to feel small and not be afraid. Eventually, you return to your cell. The straw mattress is rough. The wool blanket itches. Your shoulders ache, but your thoughts are soft. Tonight, Brother Elric, you are not pretending. You are not just enduring. You are beginning to belong. Let the stars stay with you. Let the wind brush past the window. Let your sins rest on the stone floor beside your bed, where they can't climb back into your dreams. Sleep now. The next bell is still far away. The day begins as always, with the slow tolling of the Vigils bell, the gentle creak of stone, as bodies rise from beds not built for comfort, and the silent procession of monks into the chapel. Your voice, when it joins the chant, feels steadier now. You no longer think about each syllable. The words move through you like breath through a reed pipe. They don't have to mean anything to settle your soul. And yet, today, something tugs at your thoughts. A small ripple in the current. You don't know what it is yet, but you feel it, like the heaviness in the air before rain. After Lord's, you're assigned again to the gatehouse. Strange. That job usually rotates. You nod and take your robe and ledger and settle into the little room beside the gate. And within the hour, the knock comes. Not the soft, tentative knock of a penitent villager, not the desperate pounding of a man seeking shelter. This is deliberate, measured. Just 3 knocks, and then silence. You open the small viewing hatch. A man stands there, tall, wrapped in a traveller's cloak lined with fur. Dust clings to his boots, and his eyes are sharp in a way that doesn't match the Abbey's stillness. He carries no weapon, but his hands move like he's used to one. He says your name, your real name, not Brother Aelric, the name you gave up when you took the robe. You freeze. He says it again, then adds gently, I'm your brother. Your legs don't quite feel like yours. As you unlock the door, he steps inside the gatehouse. The door closes behind him with a sound that feels too loud. The walls suddenly feel too small. He removes his hood. His hair is shorter than you remember, touched with grey at the temples. His face has changed, broader, older, but the eyes are the same. You realize you haven't seen your brother in over a decade. The last time, he was a boy, chasing goats barefoot through the orchard. You were the serious one, always reading, always thinking. He was the one who laughed with his mouth wide open and cried when he stepped on thorns. Now he stands in front of you, a man, and you are a monk. He speaks first, quietly, respectfully. Just wanted to see you, make sure you're alive in here. You say nothing. You are not supposed to speak to outsiders. He waits. Then softly, do you ever think about coming back? The words hang in the air like smoke. You look at your hands, ink-stained, calloused, familiar. You shake your head, not as an answer, just to make the question stop echoing. He smiles sadly. I thought you might say that. Well, I suppose you didn't say it, but still. He reaches into his cloak and pulls out a wrapped bundle. Bread. Real bread. With a dark crust and the smell of rosemary, he places it on the table. I know you're not allowed to accept gifts, but I also know you haven't had proper bread in 10 years. You stare at it. He watches you a moment longer, then stands. I won't stay. I just wanted to see you. Once. He reaches for the latch, and then, without thinking, you speak a single word, his name. Your voice cracks when you say it. It hasn't spoken a name in years. He turns, startled. You see his eyes soften, not with pity, but with something deeper. A recognition, a memory. He doesn't say anything back, just nods once and leaves. You sit there for a long time after he's gone. The bread remains on the table. You don't touch it. You don't throw it away either. Instead, you wrap it again, carefully, as if it were fragile. And you carry it to the infirmary. There's a novice there, one who's been coughing for days, pale, tired. You set the bread beside his cot. He doesn't ask where it came from. You don't say. That evening, during Vespers, your voice trembles, just a little. You keep singing, you keep kneeling, you keep breathing. But something inside you is shifting. After Compline, You return to your cell. You light your candle and open your psalter. Tucked inside the pages, between Psalm 88 and 89, you place a single small slip of parchment. It reads, Aelric. Once. Still, that's all. You blow out the candle. The room smells faintly of rosemary. Tonight, you will dream of orchards, of laughter on summer winds, of goats and thorns and names, and in the dream you are both the boy and the monk, and no one tells you which one you must be. Sleep now. Tomorrow the bell will ring again, and your name will still echo, softly, secretly, in the silence between each prayer. The next morning arrives not with bells, but with birdsong. Unusual, you blink awake and realize something's different. The light filtering through your narrow window is golden, warmer than usual. It carries the smell of dew-wet grass and freshly crushed herbs. Then it strikes you. Today is not an ordinary day. It is a feast day you'd nearly forgotten. The long rhythm of monastic life has a way of softening the sharp edges of time. Days blur into chants, into prayers, into meals, but every so often, scattered across the calendar like stars in a night sky, there are days like this, days of ritual, celebration, small sacred joy. The bells ring, slightly faster, not frantic, but brighter. The monks around you move with the same calm pace, yet their robes seem lighter somehow. Their steps just a little quicker. You sense it in their posture, in the way Brother Matthias allows the corner of his mouth to lift. Not quite a smile, but close. You rise and dress, the robe familiar and warm against your skin. Outside your cell, the hall smells faintly of clove smoke and baked apples. Your stomach rumbles with an awareness it hasn't had in weeks. Feast days always begin with lauds, of course. But the chants are different today. You notice new verses added, psalms sung in harmony, a low drone beneath the melody, humming like bees over summer fields. You sing more boldly than usual. Your voice joins the others and becomes something greater than itself. There is joy here, quiet joy, the kind that doesn't need to shout. After prayer, you're led to the refectory and your breath catches. The long wooden tables have been laid with care, rough linen cloths, clay jugs filled not with plain water, but with herbal infusion, lemon balm and chamomile, steeped since dawn. The bowls are deeper today, and you catch the scent of honey. And could it be? Yes, cakes, small ones, modest, by worldly standards. But here, among the silence and stone, they are treasures. Made of coarse flour, egg, honey, and crushed walnuts. Slightly burned around the edges. Imperfect. Human. You sit and wait, reverently. A monk reads from the scriptures, as always, but even his voice feels less severe. The story today is one of mercy, of healing, of celebration after long wandering. You eat slowly. The honey cake is dense and sticky, and clings to your teeth. A speck of walnut gets caught in your molar, and you spend 5 minutes dislodging it, silently with your tongue. You're not supposed to laugh here, but deep down you do. Even this clumsy, fumbling moment is part of the joy. After the meal, there is no assigned labor. Instead, you join the other monks in the cloister walk, where someone has laid out musical instruments, rarely seen. Simple things: a psaltery, a bone flute, a tambour frame. Brother Cedric, who once tested your obedience with a dagger and a loaf of bread, now plucks at the psaltery with fingers so stiff they barely bend. The notes are uneven, but there's a rhythm there, like rain on an old roof. Someone begins to hum. You join quietly. You don't know the song, but it doesn't matter. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. That at afternoon you walk, alone in the herb garden. The mint is beginning to flower. Tiny purple blossoms at the tips of the stalks. The bees are drunk with it. You reach down, pluck a single leaf, and rub it between your fingers. The scent explodes. Bright, sharp, clean. You press the leaf to your lips, then tuck it into your psalter with the rosemary from before. You wonder if these pages will one day carry the memory of all the smells you folded into them. Lavender, ink, dust, mint. Memory is strange in the Abbey. You forget whole years, and yet remember a single afternoon's light perfectly. As evening nears, a special vespers is held. Candles, more than usual. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Their light glows against the chapel walls like liquid gold. Death chants tonight are slower, almost aching in their beauty. You feel the notes inside your ribs, as if your bones are vibrating. At one point, the singing pauses, and the entire abbey, every monk, every novice, every elder, sits in pure, unbroken silence, and in that silence, you hear the crackle of wax, the breath of a monk 2 places over, the faint chirp of a night bird through the high windows. You feel full, not from the meal, not from the music, from being here. Exactly here. After Compline, no one hurries to bed. There's no rule against it, but no one speaks. They linger. You return to your cell eventually. You open your psalter. You read nothing. You just hold it. Your fingers brush the mint leaf, still fresh. The rosemary, now dry and brittle. Your candle flickers. And you, Brother Elric, close your eyes. Tonight, you will dream not of burdens, but of light, of honey cakes and broken notes, of warmth shared in silence, of joy, not as indulgence, but as devotion. Sleep now. Tomorrow, the bells will return to their usual tones. But the echo of this day will remain, tucked quietly inside you, like a song only you can. Here, you feel it before it arrives, the storm. Long before the sky darkens or the winds rise, something shifts in the rhythm of the Abbey. The bells still ring, the chants still flow. But there is tension now in the stillness, like a thread pulled too tight. Even the birds have gone quiet. The air smells of iron and moss, the kind of damp that clings to old stone, and whispers of thunder. After Lords, you are sent to the garden to harvest what you can. You gather sprigs of mint, handfuls of thyme, and roots that take more strength than you expect. The earth is stubborn, swollen with recent rain. You kneel in the mud, tugging stubbornly at a clump of parsnip, until the roots finally give way. Flinging cold soil across your face, you sit back and laugh, softly. You haven't laughed in days, maybe weeks. No one hears you. The clouds roll, in by terse, heavy, dark, reluctant to move. By midday, the wind arrives. You eat quickly, a thin stew, no honey cake today, and return to the scriptorium. but the air is so damp that the ink won't dry. The parchment curls. Every stroke of your quill feels like dragging it through syrup. Brother Matthias appears, nods toward the windows, and says softly, "Enough for today." His voice sounds odd, like a candle speaking. You do as you're told. By none, the rain begins, not gently. It arrives like a choir of fists on the rooftop, relentless all at once. The sound drowns out the chant. The chapel leaks. You watch a drop fall from the stone arch and land with a perfect plink in the baptismal font. The water swells, drips, echoes, and the abbot says nothing. The prayer continues. Then, sometime in the grey blur between Vespers and Compline, it happens. Crack, sharp, sudden, like a giant snapping a branch. A shout. Then movement, monks running, doors opening, a gust of wind slamming a shutter wide. You are pulled from your cell by Brother Cedric, who for once has no cryptic silence to offer. "Tree down," he says simply. "By the western wall. They'll need hands." You follow him into the storm. The cloister garden, so peaceful only days ago, is now a battlefield of wind and water. Branches thrash like snakes. Leaves swirl in angry spirals. Rain slaps your robe until it clings to your skin. You reach the western wall. The tree is massive, old, gnarled, and it has fallen across the outbuilding where herbs were stored. The stone beneath it has cracked. Mud slides down the slope in thick rivers. You join the line of monks. No words, just work. You pass buckets, clear stones, lift broken beams. One by one. Your arms ache, your back bends, but you do not stop, you are soaked, cold, filthy. And yet you have never felt more certain, not of yourself, not of your strength, but as of your place. You are a stone in a wall, a hand in the chain, a voice in the silence. By nightfall, the worst has passed. The tree is gone. The damage contained. No one was hurt. You return to the chapel for Compline, your robe still dripping. The candles flicker as you kneel. Your knees sink into cold puddles on the stone floor, and still you sing. Your voice joins the others, ragged, tired, hoarse, but together you rise, you rise. Afterward, the monks linger. No one says it aloud, but they are shaken, not from fear, from memory. Storms like this are rare, but when they come, they stay in the stone. That night, you return to your cell. You remove your robe and hang it by the small candle flame to dry. You sit on the edge of your straw bedding and look at your psalter. The rosemary is crumbling. The mint has gone brown, but you don't remove them. You add one more leaf, a wet, torn bit of ivy from the garden, pressed into a blank page. You close the book and lie down. The Abbey creaks above you. The storm murmurs in the rafters. The walls breathe slowly again, and you, Brother Elric, you sleep, not because you're tired, not because the day was long, but because at last you are at peace. You are no longer an outsider, no longer waiting for silence to teach you its language. You are the silence now. You are the stone. You are the song. You are the monk. Let the storm fade behind your breath. Let the thunder become a lullaby. Let the final bell echo only once. Inside, you sleep, Brother Aelric. Your story is told, and the night is long. You wake before the sun. Your room is quiet, so quiet you can hear the slow, creaking stretch of the wood above you. The rafters of your home shift gently, as if sighing with the wind outside. It's still dark, and the sky out the tiny window is a sleepy navy blue, drowsy with mist and the last hint of stars. You lie there for a moment, barely breathing, listening to the soft rustle of hay beneath your bedding and the distant hoot of an owl somewhere beyond the stone walls. Today is the day you begin your new life. You swing your feet over the edge of the low straw bed. Your toes find the cold, uneven floor, and you shiver despite the blanket still clinging to your shoulders. The room smells faintly of smoke and old herbs. Dried sage, maybe, and something metallic. Faint, but familiar now. Your boots are stiff when you pull them on. There's a notch in the left one where the leather's worn through. It presses just enough against your toe to remind you of who you were yesterday. Someone else. Someone softer. Today, you begin the work of a headsman. No one talks about how people become executioners. You're not even sure how it happened, really. You didn't wake up one day dreaming of axes or gallows. But when the plague took the last man, old Bertrand, whose hands had trembled too much near the end, they needed someone. You were already strong. You had no family left. And the village, well, they looked at you with those eyes, the ones that ask questions without ever daring to speak them aloud. You walk outside. The morning air cuts against your cheeks, cool, wet, and smelling of dew-soaked dirt. Crows murmur low in the hedgerows. Somewhere nearby, a rooster tries half-heartedly to crow. Even it sounds sleepy. You pull your hood up and begin the walk toward the edge of the village, where the town guard keeps the tools. They didn't trust you with them just yet. The ground is soft underfoot from last night's rain. Mud clings to the soles of your boots with every step, heavy and sucking. Each footfall feels a little harder than the last. You tell yourself it's just the earth. But deep down, you know it's not just that. You reach the shed. It's not locked. Just a crude latch on an old wooden door with iron hinges, squeaky and rust-flecked. You lift it. The sound it makes, eek, is almost too loud for the morning, like a shriek trying to disguise itself as a yawn. Inside, the tools are waiting. There's a thick canvas cloth hanging on a hook. You take it down. It's heavier than you thought, rough and stained, probably from generations of use. You try not to look too closely at the marks. You know what they are. Instead, you drape it over your shoulder and turn to the corner, the Vigils. The Diorin axe leans against the wall, just where they said it would be. It's beautiful, in a terrible way. The blade is broad and curved slightly, the edge recently wetted to a dull sheen. The handle is worn smooth, the kind of wear that only time and 1,000 hands can create. You lift it slowly. It's not light. You carry it like you would carry something holy. Or cursed. You're not sure which yet. The walk back is quieter than before. The village is beginning to wake up. Thin trails of chimney smoke stretch into the sky, and somewhere a baby cries. But no one speaks to you. They see the axe, they see the cloth, and they step back. Your heart doesn't pound. It's slower than that. Heavier, like it's trying to understand what you're becoming. You're not supposed to perform an execution today. Today is for learning. You're supposed to meet the sheriff and observe what they call the process. You try to imagine what that means. A procession, a prayer, a command. You wish you had asked more questions, but somehow it felt wrong to speak too much about it. Like talking about the gallows might summon them into your dreams. You reach the small wooden hall near the town square. Inside, the sheriff is waiting, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. He's got a face like a worn-out boot, leathery, creased and tired of everything. "You're early," he mutters, but not unkindly. You nod. You don't have much to say. What would you say? Nice day for it. You don't even know what it really is yet. He gestures for you to follow him, and you do. You walk in silence for a long time, past the blacksmith's shop, past the well where old women gather to gossip. They fall silent when they see you. The sheriff doesn't seem to notice, or maybe he's just used to it. He leads you to a small room behind the hall, low-ceilinged and dim, lit only by a slit of morning light through a barred window. Inside is a man, shackled at the wrists and ankles, slumped against the wall. He's asleep, or pretending. "This is him," the sheriff says. You nod again. Your mouth is dry. He stole from the bishop's men, twice. The court ruled execution. He doesn't sound angry, or sorry, just tired. You glance at the man again. He's younger than you expected. Maybe no older than yourself. His beard is patchy. One shoe is missing. You wonder what the story was, the one that led him here. You wonder if anyone knows. The sheriff turns to you. "Watch carefully," he says. "You'll need to learn how it's done." You ask quietly, "Does it always happen this fast?" He looks at you for a long moment, then shrugs. Sometimes slower. You don't ask what that means. Outside, the square has begun to fill. People gather, hushed but curious. It's strange, you think, how quickly fear turns into fascination. You can feel their eyes, even as you try to keep yours down. You don't want to look at them. You don't want to see what they see when they look at you. The sheriff steps up onto the wooden platform. His voice is steady, practiced. You stand at the edge behind the curtain, clutching the cloth, the axe still in your hand. It smells now. Not of blood, not yet, but of old sweat and damp wood. You try to steady your breathing. In, out, in, out. The sheriff finishes the sentence. The crowd stirs. But today, the sheriff will do the task. You only watch. You force yourself to look. To really look. Because you have to. Because this is now your life, the swing is quick. Quicker than you thought it would be. There's a moment afterward, just a moment, where time seems to stop. The air goes still. The birds go quiet. The sky turns the softest kind of grey. And then it all starts again. The murmurs, the shifting feet, the footsteps retreating. You remain still. The sheriff approaches, wipes his hands on the cloth you hold, and says, "Next time, it's yours." You don't say anything. The axe is heavier now. You walk back to the edge of the village alone. The sky is brighter, and the wind has picked up. You can smell the fields, the animals, the bakery just starting to warm its oven. Life goes on. It always does. You sit by the river and you let yourself breathe again. You wonder if your hands will ever feel clean. And slowly, softly, the day turns to dusk. The sun slips down behind the trees, and the sky is painted in sleepy streaks of gold and lavender. You close your eyes, not to sleep, not yet, just to rest, just for a moment. The cloth sits in your lap, the axe lies beside you, and tomorrow you begin again. The fire crackles softly in the hearth. You sit on the edge of a low stool, hands resting in your lap, fingers still sticky with ash. The axe is propped against the wall near the door, freshly oiled and heavy with silence. Its edge glints faintly in the flickering firelight, curved like the crescent moon you saw earlier when you stepped outside to clear your thoughts. The night smells of damp earth and chimney smoke, with just the faintest note of meat roasting from a neighbour's home down the road. You haven't spoken all evening. You haven't needed to. The village didn't say anything after the execution. Earlier, not aloud. But their eyes said enough. Some were wide with awe. Others flinched, as though your very presence scraped across their skin like a whetstone. A few nodded quietly, which was worse in some ways, like they had already accepted this version of you. The man with the axe. The man they don't call by name anymore. You tell yourself you're learning, you're adapting. It's a role, a job. Someone has to do it. That's what they always say. But your hands still remember the way the handle felt, the way the cloth soaked up what it soaked up. Your sleep is light that night, not because of dreams. You don't remember dreaming at all, but because the silence hums too loudly, and when the rooster crows, you feel like you've barely blinked. You wash at the basin with cold water, and for a second you imagine the drops running down your arms are something else entirely. But you scrub harder and look away. The sheriff said to meet him at the blacksmith's today. You wonder why. The morning is crisp, a fine mist crawling across the cobblestones like it doesn't want to wake up either. Horses snort in their stalls. A woman brushes her steps with rhythmic determination, her broom whisking fallen leaves into neat little piles. You think about how peaceful it all looks from the outside. When you reach the blacksmith's, the heat is already spilling out into the yard. Inside, iron clinks against iron in a familiar rhythm, sharp, bright, alive. The blacksmith, Hildred, is a large man with arms like tree trunks and a nose that looks like it's been broken more than once. He doesn't greet you, just gestures. You're going to need your own blade, the sheriff says from beside the forge, where he leans against a post like it's holding him up. You hesitate. I thought the old one. No, he interrupts gently. That axe belongs to the village. You'll keep using it for now, but one day soon you'll need one that's yours. Balanced for your swing. Weighted just right. Hildred will help. You make it. You glance at the smith. He shrugs and reaches for a hunk of steel glowing orange on the edge of the coals. There's a difference, he grunts. Between chopping wood and guiding a soul. You blink. He doesn't elaborate. You spend most of the day watching. The iron glows. Sparks leap like fireflies. The smell of burning coal clings to your skin. Hildred works without saying much, shaping the steel with long, deliberate movements. His hammer falls in a rhythm that could lull you to sleep if it weren't so loud. Clang, clang, clang. At one point you ask if it bothers him, making weapons meant for death. He stops only briefly. "I don't make death," he says. "I shape tools. What people do with them, that's their burden. You don't respond, but the words lodge somewhere inside you. You return home with soot on your face and a dull ache in your legs from standing so long. You sit on your bed, your shoulders slumped. There's something comforting about the stillness of your room now. Even the creaky rafter feels familiar, almost like a friend sighing above you. In the days that follow, you shadow the sheriff through more of the village's quiet justice. Some days, it's minor disputes. A chicken stolen, a fence knocked down. In the night, you stand quietly in the back, arms crossed, watching the way people argue when they think they're still good at heart. Other days, you're taken to the cells to hear stories no one wants to repeat outside stone walls. Theft, violence, desperation. You begin to understand that most executions don't happen because of cruelty. They happen because people are afraid. Afraid of disorder, of change, of weakness, of themselves. You also start noticing things about yourself. How you walk more quietly now. How you listen harder when people speak. Looking for the little details they're trying to hide. How you startle less at blood. One morning, you're asked to sharpen the blade yourself. You sit at the stone wheel, the axe in your lap, water trickling into a shallow basin below. The grindstone spins slowly as you press the edge to it, steady and smooth. Sparks leap, whispering as they vanish in the air. There's something strangely meditative about it, like tracing a memory with your fingertips. You wonder how many others have done this exact thing before you, and how many couldn't do it for long. The sheriff joins you after a while. He says nothing for a time, then finally mutters, "You're getting good." You nod. You don't say thank you. It doesn't feel right. "Tomorrow," he says softly, "you'll do the work yourself." The words settle over your shoulders like a weight. You want to ask who it is, what they did, if they deserve it. But you don't. Not yet. That night, you lie in bed awake for hours, listening to the wind outside your window, to the distant creak of carts, to the breath of the village around you. Life still goes on, of course. People laugh in their homes, drink in the tavern, wrap their children in wool and tuck them into straw beds. You wonder if the condemned is sleeping now. You wonder if they know. Your dreams are slow and muddled, not frightening, but not peaceful either. You see faces you don't recognize, hear names that fade before you wake. When the rooster calls again, it feels too soon. You rise without thinking. Wash, dress, boots on, cloak over shoulders, axe in hand. You walk to the square where the platform waits. It feels different this time. Colder, sharper, more real. The crowd is already forming, though no one meets your gaze. The sheriff is there, standing stiffly, arms folded. The prisoner is there too, a man in his 50s, thin and grey, wrists bound. He stares straight ahead, not shaking, not crying, just waiting. The sheriff turns to you. It's time. You step forward. The cloth is in your hands before you realize you reached for it. You wipe the axe slowly, methodically, though there's nothing on it. A ritual, you guess, or maybe just something to do with your hands. The man kneels. You take your place. The world narrows to this moment. The feel of the wood under your boots, the smell of the morning, Wet leaves, chimney smoke, the faint tang of metal. You breathe in, and for the first time, your hands do not tremble. You raise the axe, you pause, not for effect, not for hesitation, but for something else entirely. A breath, a final moment of stillness. And then, well, we don't need to dwell on that, do we? When it's over, you step back, slowly, carefully, like every inch away from that platform is a step back toward who you were. The sheriff nods. The crowd disperses. You return home alone. You wash your hands. You sit on your bed. You rest your head in your hands, and you let the silence wrap around you again like a familiar blanket. You're not thinking about guilt, or pride, or justice. You're only thinking about the next morning, and whether you'll still be able to do it again. The fire crackles softly, the axe leans where it always does, and sleep eventually finds you. You wake with the light this time. No rooster needed, no knock at the door. Just the faint gold of dawn spilling through the slatted shutters, stretching long shadows across the rough wooden floor. You stare at the ceiling for a while, tracing the grain of the beams with your eyes. One knot near the center looks vaguely like a face, eyes pinched, mouth set in a crooked frown. It's probably always looked like that. You're only noticing now. Your muscles are stiff, your neck sore. You slept, yes, but not deeply, not restfully. The kind of sleep that cradles your body, but never quite reaches your mind. You sit up slowly. The room smells faintly of sweat, iron, and something earthy, like the wet wool of your cloak drying by the hearth. You stretch your legs and wince, slightly at the dull ache in your knees. Odd how quickly the body remembers certain kinds of strain. There's no execution scheduled today. You're grateful for that. Quietly, guiltily grateful. You feel lighter without the weight of that knowledge clinging to your skin. But at the same time, the space where the task should be, it echoes. A hollow spot in your chest, like something once buried there has been dug up. You make tea. The leaves are old and weak, but the warmth seeps into your fingers as you cradle the clay cup. You sip slowly, letting the steam blur your vision for a moment. The birds outside are chirping, careless, cheerful, oblivious. Later, you walk into the village. You keep your hood low. The market is already stirring. Traders unloading carts of tired cabbages and shriveled apples. A boy chases a dog through puddles left from last night's rain. You hear a blackbird singing from the roof above the cooper's shop. The air smells of wood smoke, manure, and yeast rising in some baker's oven. You try to feel like a part of it all. You really do, but the people, they step around you now. Not rudely, just slightly, as though your shadow stretches a little too far, as if brushing against your cloak might leave a mark. You pass a group of women scrubbing laundry in the stream. Their voices hush as you approach. You lower your gaze, though you feel their eyes follow. It's not hatred you feel from them. It's not even fear. It's distance. A careful, practiced detachment. You suppose it makes sense. The executioner must always live just outside the fence. Not far enough to vanish, but just far enough that his presence never feels too close. Still, it stings more than you expected. You make your way to the church, not for a sermon, but for the records. The priest, a wiry man with tired hands and bright eyes, nods at you when you arrive. He says nothing about the axe on your back. He simply gestures to the scrolls stacked in a low chest near the altar, and returns to polishing brass candlesticks. You crouch and begin to read. The names, the charges, the sentences, each line another small story, many of them short, some strange. Edric, theft of 2 hams and a silver cup. Execution. Sabina, witchcraft. Execution. Marcel, assault of a noble. Hanging. Unnamed child. No sentence. Recorded. Died awaiting trial. You pause there, fingers resting gently on the edge of the parchment. So many names. So many quiet endings. You wonder how many of them protested, how many begged, how many believed, even in their final hour, that they might be spared, and how many simply closed their eyes. There's something solemn in the ink, a sadness that the pages carry like a whisper. You gently roll the scroll back up and return it to its chest. The priest clears his throat softly. It weighs on you. It isn't a question. You glance up. He's watching you with something like sympathy. You'd be worried if it didn't, he adds. You nod once, then you leave. Outside, the sun is higher now, the day warming slightly. Children play in the dust near the square, their laughter shrill but genuine. For a moment, you envy them, you return home. And that's when you see it, a bundle left at your door, wrapped in brown linen, tied with a simple string. You crouch and examine it. No note. Inside, bread, still warm, and a tin of salve for blisters or aches. The scent is sharp, like mint and pine. You stare at it for a long time. Someone is thanking you, or comforting you, or maybe just recognizing you. You don't know who, but something inside you eases, just a little. You eat the bread slowly, tearing it with your hands, letting each bite soften on your tongue. It tastes simple and good, and it makes you feel, strangely, more human. That evening, you sit near the hearth again, sharpening the blade. It's become a habit now, like combing your hair or washing your face. You do it not because it's needed, but because it tells your hands what to do when your mind wanders. You hum a little, a tune from childhood maybe, something about rivers and stars. Outside, the wind shifts, the scent of rain is in the air. You think about the man from yesterday, the one whose life ended beneath your hands. You wonder if someone mourns him, or if he simply vanished from the world like smoke from a chimney. You hope, quietly, selfishly, that he was at peace in that final moment. And then you stop hoping, because hoping, you've learned, is dangerous. It pulls you back towards softness. And softness has no place in the shadow you now walk. Still, you close your eyes, and for a while you let yourself pretend. Pretend you're not an executioner. Pretend you're a miller, or a potter, or someone whose tools leave no scars. Pretend that the bread will always appear, that the salve will always soothe, that the birds will always sing. You don't fall asleep easily, but eventually the room grows still. The coals in the fire sink low. The wind dies down, and the sound of your breath becomes the only sound there is. Another day waits tomorrow. Another life in the margins. Another step into the quiet path you never meant to walk. And so you sleep. You wake to rain. Not the harsh kind, not a storm, just a soft whispering drizzle, like the sky is speaking in secrets only the earth can understand. It taps gently against the shutters and drips steadily from the thatched roof above. You watch one slow droplet crawl down the inside of the window pane, leaving a thin trail of morning condensation in its wake. There's no urgency today, no calls from the sheriff, no summons to the square, just the kind of grey, slanted morning that asks nothing of you except patience. You sit at the edge of your bed, stretching your legs out slowly, listening to the sound of the rain and the tiny pop of moisture in the fire's coals. Your body feels heavy, not sore, not tired, just solid, anchored. You wrap yourself in your thickest cloak and sip hot broth from a wooden cup. It tastes like boiled onions and herbs, the sort of meal meant to keep a body warm more than to please the tongue. Still, it does the trick. You feel the warmth spread through your chest, anchoring you further. You're meant to visit the gallows today. Not for work, not yet, just for maintenance. The sheriff told you that part of the job wasn't just swinging a blade. There's rope to mind, beams to check. Wood that creaks too much must be replaced, lest the whole structure betray you at the worst possible moment. Even executions require upkeep. You walk slowly through the wet streets. The stones slick beneath your boots. You keep your hood up, letting the sound of the rain fill your ears. Most people have stayed inside, but you see a few hunched figures. Bakers tending fires, a farmer leading a stubborn goat through puddles, a girl barefoot in the mud, chasing leaves with her hands stretched wide. The gallows stand at the far edge of the square. From afar, they look like part of the landscape, just more wood and shadow. But up close, they change. The grain of the beams becomes clear, darkened by years of weather and something else. The rope hangs loosely now, damp and sagging. It smells faintly of hemp and mildew. You test the trap door, the hinges groan. You kneel and examine the frame beneath, rotting in one corner. Not surprising. Rain and time do their work on everything, just like you. You return with tools, a chisel, some fresh timber, and a small jar of pitch. As you work, you find your mind drifting again, towards strange thoughts, quiet thoughts. You begin to notice the little details of the gallows. Scratches in the beam where people clawed, a notch in the plank, possibly carved by someone with too much time in their final moments. A faint stain that refuses to lift, no matter how many storms pass through. You sit on the edge of the platform for a while once you're done. Not in any hurry to go back. You can see the whole village from here. Chimneys puffing soft smoke. Trees swaying gently under the grey sky. A cart moving slowly up the muddy road, its wheels complaining at every turn. You wonder who built the gallows first. Was it the sheriff himself? A carpenter? Did they know what they were building? Or was it just another job? Planks, nails, rope, nothing personal. It always becomes personal, though. Eventually, you return home just as the rain begins to fade, and the sky lifts slightly from its grey sleep. Not quite sun, not yet, but brighter. A boy is waiting near your door. He's no more than 12, thin and pale, his clothes patched and too small. He doesn't flinch when you approach. He just holds out a folded note. For you, he says. You take it and offer him a coin. He shakes his head. Wasn't for payment. Then he runs off, shoes slapping through the puddles. The note is simple. A name, a date, 3 days from now, and nothing else. No details, no explanation. But you understand what it means. Someone has been condemned, and you will be the one to end them. You sit inside and read the note again and again, as if the ink might change, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something gentler. But they never do. You spend the next few days in quiet routine. You sharpen the blade. You boil your own linen wraps in water scented with rosemary. Bertrand, your predecessor, once said it masked the worst of it. You sit near the fire at night and listen to the wood crack and settle. And you remember stories the villagers used to tell, of old headsmen who wore black masks, who never showed their faces, who whispered prayers before each swing, myths maybe, or maybe just comforts they gave themselves. The sheriff visits the night before the sentence. He doesn't stay long. He hands you a slip of parchment and a mug of hot cider. Drink that. Helps sleep. He doesn't ask how you're feeling. You both know the answer would be complicated. You read the new note slowly, absorbing the details like a sponge. The condemned is a woman this time, accused of poisoning her husband. No one will speak for her. No family has come forward. You wonder if she did it. You wonder if it matters. When the morning comes, it's clear and dry. You dress slowly, your boots, your cloak, your gloves, the axe, feels balanced in your hand. The walk to the platform feels longer than usual. You pass familiar faces, blacksmith, priest, widow, the boys who fish at the edge of the stream. Their eyes find the ground, or the clouds, or anywhere but you. The woman is already waiting at the square. She's older than you expected. Quiet, eyes lined with time, her hair pulled back neatly. She looks dignified, not broken, not angry. Just there. You meet her eyes. She holds your gaze, and then she looks away. You step up to the platform. You do what you've been trained to do. The cloth, the preparation, the pause. But before you begin, she speaks. Only a few words. Barely a whisper. Make it clean. You nod, and when you swing carefully. Cleanly. When it's done, there's no sound. Even the birds seem to hold their breath. You clean the blade slowly, methodically. You do not look at the crowd. You do not look at the woman. You only look at your hands. When you return home, there's another bundle waiting by the door. Bread. A tiny jar of honey this time, and a sprig of lavender tied with string. You don't know if it's from the same person. You don't know what it means. But you set it gently on the table. And, for the first time in many nights, you sleep without sharpening the blade. The dreams have changed. You don't always remember them, not completely. But you know they feel different now. Less jagged, less loud, like your mind has grown quieter. Not because it's healed, but because it's learned how to whisper back to the darkness. This morning, the air is warm, a rare thing, for spring. The window is cracked open, and a gentle breeze stirs the edge of the linen hanging on the wall. The room smells faintly of beeswax and lavender, left over from the sprig someone gifted you days ago. You still don't know who left it. You're not sure you want to. Some kindnesses are easier left unnamed. You move slowly today. There is no urgency, no official duties. You light a small fire, slice a piece of bread, and pour yourself the last of the cider the sheriff gave you. It tastes dry and mellow, the kind of flavour that reminds you of orchard dust and late summer. Heat. You chew slowly, each bite softening into silence. And then you notice it. On the floor, just inside the doorway, a bundle. Again, this time it's not food, it's fabric. You crouch, unwrap it slowly, revealing a folded piece of dark cloth. Soft, thick, surprisingly fine, carefully stitched along the edge. At first, you don't recognize what it is. Then it becomes clear. A mask. Black. Simple. Meant to cover your whole face except the eyes. You hold it in your hands for a long time. There's no note. No instructions. Just the silent offering. You wonder who left it. Was it meant as a kindness? A gesture of respect? Or simply practicality? An attempt to separate you from your face? You sit back on your heels and you realize something. You don't know what your own face looks like anymore. Not really. You haven't looked in a mirror since, well, since before. You pull one out now, from the shelf near your bed. A little bronze thing with flecks of age around the rim. You hold it in front of your face and stare. It's you. Of course it is, but not the same you from before. Your eyes look older. Not tired exactly. Just farther away. You try the mask on. It fits. Oh, of course it fits. And suddenly you understand why so many executioners wore one. It isn't for mystery or fear. It's for distance. It gives you permission to be the role, not the man. You spend the afternoon walking the fields just outside the village. There's a path that winds near the stream, hidden by tall grasses and budding trees. It's quiet, there. Sometimes deer pass through. Sometimes no one does. You take your boots off and sit by the bank. The earth is damp beneath your feet, soft and forgiving. You dip your toes into the water. It's cold. Shocking at first, then numbing in. A good way. Like your nerves are waking up after a long sleep. You stay there a long while, just sitting. You watch birds dive and lift, quick flashes of motion against the still sky. You trace little circles in the dirt with your fingers. And at one point, you speak aloud, just one sentence. I didn't ask for this. It's not angry. Not even sad, just true. The breeze carries your words away like a leaf. That night, the sheriff invites you to the tavern. He doesn't do this often. You step inside and the warmth hits you immediately. The crackle of the fire, the low murmur of conversation, the soft thrum of music played by a man in the corner with a cracked fiddle, the smell of ale and stew and wood smoke. No one meets your eye. But they don't turn away either. You sit in the corner, across from the sheriff. He hands you a mug. To another clean one, he says, raising his cup a little. You nod, but you don't drink right away. You ever get used to it? You ask finally. The sheriff leans back, scratches at his beard. No, he takes a long sip. You just learn when not to flinch. You let the words settle. There's comfort in their honesty. Later, someone approaches your table. A woman you recognize vaguely. Sister to the tanner's wife, perhaps. She doesn't speak at first. She just sets down a small pouch. For wood, she says, you always keep the gallows fixed proper. That matters. She doesn't wait for a reply, just leaves. You stare at the pouch. Inside a few small coins, not much, but enough. Enough to remind you that somehow people notice. You return home with a strange heaviness in your chest. Not sadness, not pride, just a kind of full silence, like your soul is holding something carefully it hasn't named yet. You set the mask on your table, and beside it, the coins, the cloth from the bread, the sprig of lavender now dried and delicate. Your life now is made of these quiet things. You sharpen the axe, but not because you have to, because you want the edge to be ready, because it's a small thing you can control. That night your dreams are soft. You walk through mist and fields, you wear the mask, but it's not heavy, and in the dream no one looks away from you. The sky is pale with morning when you rise, not golden, not blue, just a soft sheet of pearl stretched across the horizon. A quiet kind of light, the sort that doesn't insist itself, but gently seeps into the corners of the room like warm breath. Your hands are cold this morning. You rub them together slowly, palms rasping like parchment, and then hold them toward the small fire you started before sunrise. The flames flicker lazily, like they're still waking up themselves. The hearth crackles in sleepy rhythm, and you listen as the kindling settles. It's another day without a name, no sentence to carry out, no summons, but there's always something to do. You dress with slow, practiced movements, each layer an old habit. Linen shirt, coarse wool tunic, belt, boots, cloak. The axe stays behind today. That's not what you'll need. You've been asked to help with the records, not an honor, not a punishment, just part of the job. The town scribe is ill, and the sheriff trusts you more than most. You suppose that says something about you now. You're not sure if it's good. The records are kept beneath the chapel, in a little room no one visits unless they must. You walk there in silence, boots crunching softly on frost-crusted gravel. A crow hops along the roof of the butcher's shop, tilting its head like it knows something you don't. A cat slinks across your path and vanishes under a cart. No one speaks to you as you pass, but a few nod. Quiet acknowledgements, not warm, not cold, just the way people nod at fire. Close enough to respect, but never to touch. The chapel is cool inside, the stone walls always damp. The priest greets you with a tired smile and hands you a ring of old keys without a word. You light a candle and descend the narrow stairwell, your footsteps soft on the worn stone. The record room smells of wax and dust and age. The shelves are crooked with time, some scrolls cracked at the edges, others curling like leaves left too. Long in the sun, you sit at the small wooden desk in the middle and unroll the first one. A list of names, all of them familiar, not because you knew them, but because you ended them. You find your own handwriting, careful and even. Beatrice of Lark Hollow, for poisoning, executed. Tom Reimer, repeat theft, executed. You pause at each name. You don't mean to. You just do. It's like your mind wants to make space for each one. Not to judge, not to justify, just to remember that they were real. You begin to sort the records. Some filed incorrectly, others misdated. You smooth them gently with the flat of your palm, as if soothing a restless child. One by one you find names of those who lived long before you, names faded into smudged ink. Edrin the Lean, 1211. Gwenna of the Low Fields, 1183. One scroll slips loose and falls open on the floor. It's older than the others, written in a tight, sharp script. Not a record of executions, but a manual. Instructions. How to build a scaffold. How to loop a noose. How to sharpen an axe. And curiously, how to speak to the condemned. There's a passage in the margins written in different ink, almost a whisper on the page. Never forget they are people first. If you do, you lose the only part of yourself worth keeping. You trace the words with your fingers. Someone wrote this long ago. Another executioner. A voice from your own shadowed lineage. It gives you pause. You close the scroll and return it to the top of the stack. The candle has burned low by now. Its wax puddled like spilled milk. You tidy up the scrolls, lock the cabinet, and make your way back upstairs. The priest is gone when you return. Only the hush of the chapel remains, echoing gently off the stone. You sit on one of the pews for a moment, alone, just breathing. The coloured glass windows glow faintly, painting the floor in soft hues of amber and blue. You tilt your head back and let the silence wrap around you. It doesn't press, doesn't prod. It just is. Outside, the frost is melting. You walk back to your cottage with the kind of slowness that comes from being fully present. The road curves, in ways it always has, but today you feel it differently. Like every stone beneath your foot is telling a little story. You pass the bakery, sweet air curling from the chimney, and the smell reminds you of simpler things, of childhood, of warmth without worry. You reach your door and find something strange waiting. Not a bundle, not bread, a feather, black, long, sleek, placed carefully on the stoop. You hold it up and feel its weightless curve in your palm. You look around, no one nearby, just the wind. You take it inside and lay it beside the mask. You begin to wonder how many lives now intersect with yours from the edges. Silent lives, small gestures. Even when you aren't taking, you're being watched. That night, you don't sharpen the axe. You write. Not much, just a few words in a notebook tucked into the corner of your trunk. You list the names again, like the scrolls, but this time with something more. A memory, a detail, a thought. Tom Reimer smiled before the end, said he missed apples in spring. Gwenna wept quietly, hummed a lullaby, never looked away. Beatrice asked for her daughter. No one answered. You close the book gently and place the feather between its pages. When you lie down, your body feels heavier than usual. Not with sorrow, not with regret, but with memory, the kind that settles deep into your bones and makes no demand except this: don't forget. And so, you don't. You close your eyes, and sleep comes slowly, but it comes. You awaken to laughter. It's not inside your home. Nothing ever is, but drifting in through the cracks and windows and thin, worn walls. Soft giggles, the kind that come from children with sticky hands and dust on their knees. Bells jingling somewhere off in the square. A burst of music, faint and clumsy, played on a flute that's just barely in tune. You rise slowly. It takes you a moment to remember what day it is, but then you smell it. Roasted chestnuts, sweet bread, oil warmed for frying. A festival, a spring feast. Nothing official, nothing sacred. just the villagers' attempt to shake off the last chill of winter and pretend for a day or two that things are simpler. You dress without thinking. Same tunic, same boots, same cloak. Your fingers hesitate near the axe as they always do. You leave it behind. You step outside, blinking into the daylight. The village has bloomed overnight. Bright ribbons hang from beams and windows. Garlands of early flowers, mostly wild things, violet, primrose, elder bloom, are draped over carts and doorways. Children with smudged faces dash through the mud with sticks, their own invented knights and monsters clashing in battle. You walk through the crowd slowly, hood up, watching from beneath the shade of your own shadow. People part around you without meaning to, a quiet ripple of space. Some nod, some glance and look away. A few smile, a thin, polite kind of smile, like they don't know whether they're supposed to pretend. You don't blame them. You don't quite know either. The blacksmith waves you over. He's sitting on a stool outside his shop, a half-eaten meat pie in one hand and a jug of something strong in the other. He pats the bench next to him, and for once you take the seat, not working. Today, he asks, biting into the pie. No one scheduled, you say. He snorts. Funny thing to hear from a man who ends lives. You don't respond. He doesn't need you to. You know, he says after a while, I was supposed to be the one. Before you showed up. You blink. You? He nods. Sheriff asked me. Said the village trusted me. I told him no. Why? He shrugs. Because I knew I'd be good at it. You don't quite understand. He watches you carefully, then adds, some things, if you're good at them, they hollow you out faster. You let the words sit between you for a while. Later, you wander toward the square. There's music now, a crooked little ensemble of lute, drum, and pipe. Villagers sway and spin in a loose circle, feet scuffing through dust and flower petals. One of the washerwomen is teaching the children a clapping game. They chant nonsense words and slap their hands together, collapsing in giggles when someone misses the beat. You find a quiet place on the edge of it all. Just watching, the sheriff joins you. He holds a cup of something steaming and sweet. Even the condemned danced once, he says after a while. You look at him. Don't know where I heard it, he says. Just a phrase. Stuck with me. You both stand there for some time. No words, no purpose. Just two men beside a world that doesn't know quite what to do with them. He leaves you with a pat on the shoulder. Later, you find a stall with pastries. The baker's apprentice, barely 15, flour in her eyebrows, offers one shyly. You reach for a coin, but she shakes her head. "'S free today," she mumbles. "For everyone." You take the pastry. It's warm and flaky, filled with apple and cinnamon. Your first bite flakes onto your tunic. You brush the crumbs away with the back of your hand, smiling quietly to yourself. You'd forgotten food could be joyful. As the sun begins to set, the villagers light lanterns. Tiny ones, just jars with wax and string mostly. But the square glows like a small constellation. The music softens. The children grow drowsy. The air smells of smoke and honey, and for a brief, flickering moment, you imagine yourself as someone else. Just a man, not a shadow, not a mask, not a blade, just a man, tired at the end of a long day, watching the lanterns float. You walk home slowly, in the dark, Your boots scuff against gravel, your cloak heavy with dew. The air is quiet now, save for one lone frog croaking near the stream. You open your door and find something new on your table. A single candle, unlit, and a slip of parchment beneath it. For light, when the job darkens you, there's no name, just that. You light the candle, watching the flame grow tall and gold. You set it beside your feather, your dried sprig, your coin pouch, and your mask. Your odd little shrine of small mercies. That night, you sleep with the windows open, letting in the sound of night crickets, letting in the scent of flowers, letting in, maybe, the possibility that even in a life of death, a man can still have his quiet festivals. The first thing you notice is the silence, not the usual kind, the familiar, comfortable hush of early morning, but a different sort. Heavy, expectant. You sit up in bed slowly, the linen creasing around your legs. The room is cold, though not from wind. A still kind of cold, like the house itself is holding its breath. There's a knock at the door, 3 times, not hurried, not timid. You pull on your cloak and answer it. Standing outside is the sheriff. He's alone, his face unreadable beneath a brimmed hat. His beard is flecked with dew. He doesn't say good morning. He simply shifts on his boots and mutters, "You're to train someone." You blink. Train? He nods. The council's decided. You're not young anymore. They want to plan ahead. You try to think of a response, but none comes. Train someone. You hadn't imagined this moment, though perhaps you should have. Of course, they would look for a replacement eventually. Tools wear out, even ones made of skin and breath. Who is it, you ask? He shrugs. A lad. Volunteered. That word sits wrong in your chest. Volunteered. You're not sure whether it's brave or foolish. You meet the boy that afternoon. He waits near the gallows, perched on the steps like someone waiting for a stagecoach. He's younger than you expected. 17, perhaps 18. Gangly, nervous hands. A nose too big for his face. He stands when he sees you and tries to look confident. "Fails, sir," he says, voice cracking just slightly. You nod, and so begins. Your strangest task yet. You teach him the tools first, not the grim parts, not yet. Just the maintenance. Rope, wood, pitch, balance. How to test for rot in the platform. How to measure a drop. How to listen for that faint groan of a hinge out of place. He listens well. Too well. He asks questions, but not the kind you expect. Not, "Why do we do it this way?" but "How many swings before it dulls?" Or, "Do you breathe in before or after you strike?" You wonder if that should worry you. You spend the next days watching him, from a distance. He speaks little. He walks like someone trying not to take up too much space. But his eyes are always moving, always measuring. You catch him once, just once, touching the axe. He doesn't see you. His fingers trace the edge, not with fear, not even curiosity, with something quieter, like reverence. Later, you sit with him, by the river. You've brought 2 mugs of cider, lukewarm and spiced. The kind the tavern sells in buckets during autumn. You pass one to him. He accepts it but doesn't drink. "I thought it would feel worse," he says finally. You look at him, saying nothing. "I've watched," he continues. "Before you, during, after. I thought I'd feel sick, but I didn't. You study his face. There's no joy there, no malice, but also no grief. You don't know what to say to that. Not yet, so you say the only truth you have. It might come later. He nods slowly, or it might not. You both sit in silence, the river speaking its slow, ancient tongue beside you. That night, you return home to find a note slipped beneath your door. It's written in a narrow, tidy hand. Please don't train him to forget. No signature, no clue. Just those 6 words. You read them again, and again, and again. They settle somewhere in the space between your ribs. You don't sleep that night. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling beam that looks like a crooked face. The boy returns thee, next morning, eager. You don't teach him the blade yet. Instead, you take him to the records, the quiet little room beneath the chapel. You show him the scrolls, the ledgers, the names. You tell him what no one ever told you, that every line was a life, that some of them were brave, some were broken, some were quiet and kind, and still found themselves standing on the scaffold. You let him read for hours, and when he's finished, you ask him a question. What part of the job do you think is hardest? He answers without hesitation. Getting it right. You nod, but you don't agree. Not entirely, because the hardest part isn't precision. It's memory. You don't say that. Not yet. That night, you light your candle, the one gifted to you weeks ago. Its flame dances quietly beside your mask, your feather, your book of names. You open the book and write another entry. Name, unknown, boy. Reason, wanted to learn, do too, quiet. Watches everything, still hasn't flinched. You close the book. Outside the wind is rising. A late storm grumbles in the distance, like a giant turning in its sleep. You sit by the window. You wonder what kind of man this boy will become. You wonder if he'll carry the silence the way you do. You hope, gently, uselessly, that he won't have to. But you know better than to hope for too long. The fog arrives before dawn. Not a light haze, not the kind that rises from warm fields at sunrise, but a thick, damp blanket that swallows sound and shape alike. When you open your shutters, the world is simply gone. Just a pale wash of white. Rub your arms beneath your cloak. The chill already seeping into the house through cracks in the beams. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls, muffled, as if he too has been caught inside this slow drifting cloud. You light the fire early. Boil water. Toast a hunk of bread on a long iron fork. Today is an execution day, but it feels different. There's no weight in your limbs, no dread in your stomach. Instead, there's a strange kind of calm. Not peace, but stillness. As if your body has already prepared for what must be done. You review the note again. The name, Edric Thorne. A repeat offender. Petty theft turned violent. Caught trying to drown. A merchant's son in a water barrel. No defense, no family to claim him. Execution approved. You imagine his face. You always do. Not to humanize, not to distance, just to recognize. You dress with care. Your apprentice arrives just after sunrise, shoulders hunched against the cold. He's wearing gloves today, an old pair, patched at the wrists. His eyes are alert, but there's a tightness in them. A calculation, the kind you've learned to spot. He says nothing as you hand him the tools. Cloth for binding, rope for restraint, oil for the axe blade. You nod once. He nods back. The two of you walk through the fog together. The square is quieter than usual. The gallows loom like an outline of a memory, barely visible until you're nearly upon them. The platform is damp, slippery in places. You test the wood with your heel. Still sound. For now, the crowd begins to arrive slowly, muted shapes in the mist, hushed voices. No jeers, no shouting. The fog takes all the sound and holds it gently, like cupping a flame. Edric is brought forward. He walks with a limp, one hand bound in a sling. Old break, maybe. His eyes are sunken, cheeks hollow, but there's something clear in his face. Defiance, still burning even now. Not pride, just refusal. You read the sentence aloud. He interrupts halfway through. Don't waste your breath, he says. You pause. Your apprentice flinches slightly beside you, uncertain. You finish the reading. Edric stares straight at you. And then he says something strange. Do you ever think it'll be you? You don't answer. But the question lingers. You step forward, adjusting the cloth. You murmur soft instructions. You always do. Not for them. For yourself. You guide your hands through each motion like a prayer. Slow and precise. Your apprentice watches closely. Too closely. You swing once. Clean. The sound, even muffled in fog, is unmistakable. Afterward, there is only the silence again. Heavy. Whole. The sheriff nods to you as the body is removed. A quiet signal. It's done. You step down from the platform. The apprentice hesitates a moment, then follows. Back at your cottage, you peel off your gloves, wash your hands, sharpen the blade. The routine is sacred now. Not for perfection, but for memory. The steps remind you that each action has meaning, that repetition is not absence. Your apprentice speaks finally. You didn't answer him. You glance up. About it ever being you, you dry the axe, set it gently aside. I think about it more than I admit, you say. He doesn't speak after that, just sits nearby, quietly watching the fire. You glance over and realize, for the first time, how much he's begun to mirror your movements. The way he folds his hands. The way he breathes through his nose when thinking. The way his shoulders shift when he's uncertain. You aren't just teaching him how to do the job. You're teaching him how to be you. See it, and that is what frightens you. Later, after he's gone, you open your notebook again. You write, Edric Thorn, 3rd day of the mist. Final words, do you ever think it'll be you? Answer, yes, always. You pause before closing the book. Then you add something new. The boy is changing. Too fast. You sit by the window as dusk falls, the fog still clinging to the eaves and fields. Somewhere in the village, music drifts faintly through the air. A stringed instrument. Soft, wandering notes. You let your eyes close. And in the stillness, you picture Edric's face again. Not in judgment, not in regret, just to remember. Because you must, because forgetting is how the job wins. The village wakes slowly. The morning is still, but not in the way of fog or frost. It's a stillness made of warmth, the kind that arrives with early summer, where the air is light and sweet, and the breeze moves through the grass like a whisper. too soft to catch. You stir under your blanket, feeling the way your joints tug and stretch. There's no stiffness today, no burden in the limbs, just a kind of gentle ache, like your body is finally exhaling after years of breath held too long. There is no execution today, no notice under the door, no apprentice waiting on the steps, no summons from the sheriff, just the quiet and a letter. You find it on the table, not slipped under the door like the others. This one is placed carefully, weighted with a smooth round stone. The parchment is finer, not scented, not sealed, just folded neatly with your name written in a calm, practiced hand. You sit down, the chair creaking beneath you. You unfold the paper. The message is short. You've done enough. There will be no more names. You may step down. No signature, no official seal, but you recognize the writing. The sheriff's. You don't move right away. You read it again and again. The words feel heavy, but not in a cruel way, like something pressing on your chest that you've carried so long you'd forgotten it was even there. You sit quietly for a long time, and then slowly you rise. You step outside. Sun is already above the trees, not hot, just kind. The street is quiet. A dog barks in the distance. A woman hangs linens on a line. A boy chases a hoop down a dusty lane, shouting in joy that echoes off stone. You pass by them like a shadow, peeling off from the wall. You walk toward the gallows, not to work, just to say goodbye. The apprentice is already there. He stands beneath the platform, polishing the beam with a cloth. The motion is careful, almost reverent. When he sees you, he nods once. He doesn't smile. He doesn't have to. You step up onto the platform, run your hand along the rope. Feel the grain of the wood beneath your fingertips, each scar, each nick, each quiet memory of what you've done, who you've been, and who you've had to be. You take off your gloves and leave them on the post. You unfasten your belt, the one that carried your tools for all these years. You hang it from a nail. You turn to the boy. He tilts his head slightly, uncertain. "I'm done," you say. He nods again, slower this time. "Will you tell them?" he asks. You look out over the square. The same stones, the same crooked gutters, the place you've stood for seasons upon seasons. "No need," you reply. They already know. You leave the gallows behind. For the first time, you don't look back. Back at home, you gather the little things, the mask, the candle burned low, the dried sprig of lavender, the feather, the coin pouch, the small book with the names. You bundle them into a cloth, fold it gently, and place it in a box beneath your bed. Not to forget, but to rest. You sit by the window until evening. The light bends low across the fields. A breeze moves through your shutters, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and something else. Rain, perhaps, though no clouds mark the sky. Just that rich, earthy promise of something ending and something new beginning. There's a knock. You open the door to find the baker's apprentice. She's taller now, voice more sure, but still carrying the same flour on her sleeves. She hands you a small loaf. "You are kind," she says. You blink. "To who?" She shrugs. "Just in general." You thank her. She vanishes down the path. Later, as the stars begin to blink awake in the sky, you walk one last time to the edge of the village, to the stream, the one with the wide stones and the moss-covered banks. You sit as you've done 100 times before. You pull off your boots, let your feet settle in the water. The current is soft, slow. It curls around your ankles and carries the dust away. You close your eyes and you breathe. No lists to remember, no axe to sharpen, no sentence to carry, only the quiet sound of water, and somewhere beyond the trees, a new name waiting to live their life. And now you sleep, not with worry, not with guilt, but with rest, because your part in the story is finally done.